You're listening to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast, where we discuss whatever the fuck we want to. And yes, we can put sex and drugs and Jesus all in the same bed and still be all right at the end of the day. My name is Devanin, and I'll be interviewing guests from every corner of this world as we dig into topics that are too risque for the morning show, as we strive to help you understand what's really going on in your life. There is nothing off the table, and we've got a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into this episode. Hello, all my beautiful peoples out there. I'm so happy to be bringing you this week's episode. Today I'm talking with Elijah Ware. He is the host of the Zephyr Podcast, and he is not only a teacher and a preacher of metaphysics, y'all, but a student of it as well. This man started teaching metaphysics at the age of 14, and he has blossomed tremendously since then. On this here episode, we're going to be getting his metaphysical perspective on God, the Bible, and all of that. We're going to dish and spill our tea, the issue that we have against Catholicism and the Catholic Church. I'm going to spill all the tea about why I got banned from Bank of America for life, hunty. Yes, I'm going to tell you what had happened. We're going to talk about some angelic appearances. I have a message to Republicans and conservatives. Then, of course, we'll talk about church hypocrisy, because why not? I hope you all enjoy the episode. Elijah, thank you so much for joining me on the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast today. How are you feeling today on a Friday morning?
I'm doing great, Devan, and thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate being here. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm fan-fucking-tastic. Fan-fucking-tastic indeed.
Wonderful. That's the best kind of fantastic to be. You're not really fantastic unless you got a few expletives in there.
Of course.
That's what I always say.
I love swear words. There is a documentary on Netflix called The History of Swear Words that Nicolas Cage orchestrates, and I think it's a phenomenal way to dispel the myths surrounding is how bad and evil and treacherous swear words are supposed to be, and come to learn how they're actually a good way to relieve stress.
Wow. They can be. I tell people now, if you use them, you have to be intelligent about how you use them. If you use them all the time, then people don't take you seriously when you are upset. So if you drop them intelligently and systematically when you are upset, people know the man is not playing right now. We better leave him alone. If you just dropping F-bombs 24/7, he ain't upset about nothing. That's just him all the time. But when you do it like every 3 months, they're like, wow, he's not playing.
Yeah, that's like the nice teacher, whenever I was in grade school, that super nice teacher who never got upset until the class pushed her to the limit, and then she finally let the dragon out, and everyone was just like dead quiet.
Exactly.
So they call you the preacher, the minister. I want to know tell me your background and how you became a minister and a preacher and all that.
Well, I grew up in a school of metaphysics, and metaphysics, the word metaphysics, it sounds like you're going to college to learn physics. When people hear that word metaphysics, they often think that maybe you go to MIT or the California Institute of Technology and you're majoring there. But the word metaphysics, the word meta in Latin just means beyond, and physics refers to the physical. So metaphysics simply means beyond the physical. I grew up along with my older brother, Tony, in a school of metaphysics. My grandmother had 7 children, 4 girls and 3 boys, and she and my step-grandfather raised them all in metaphysics. And so when my mom graduated high school and eventually went on to meet my father, he also became a metaphysical student, and they raised my brother and I as metaphysical students. And like I said, with my grandmother having so many children and raising them all in metaphysics, I grew up with my cousins and all of them being students of metaphysics. Many of them are not anymore. They kind of got away from it as they got older, but I was one of the few that kind of stayed with it. And so when I was about 14, I got more involved in what you would call, I guess, the ministry. And my local, they don't call them deans in metaphysics. I mean, they don't call them preachers in metaphysics or pastors. They call the leader the dean of the school. And so my local dean here in San Fernando, California, asked me to start teaching Sunday school. And so I did. And from there, I got recognized by other chapters of metaphysical schools around us. And I became, kind of a young minister and would get invited to speak here and there in other states and in Canada. When I was 17, I spoke in front of nearly 10,000 people at a metaphysical conference out in Nashville, Tennessee at the Grand Ole Opry Hotel. And so from then on, I just kind of continued to minister and preach.
So when you say you were in a school of metaphysics from young, so are you physically going to like a campus? Are you learning this? Is something like knowledge being passed down from elders in your family? Where are you getting teaching?
So there was a man named Henry Clifford Kinley. We called him Dr. Kinley. And he started the school that I attended in 1931. He was born in 1895, and he was what we call the founder of the school. And he began this school based upon an experience that he said he had with the Creator. And he created charts to illustrate what it is he said that he experienced and what he said that he saw. And from then on, he went about to raise up other metaphysical students and ministers that would help teach and preach the universal knowledge that he said that he experienced. Just like you had men like Neville Goddard and Emmanuel Swedenborg and Jacob Boehm and Manly P. Hall. Now, these were white men. So, of course, they were recognized in metaphysics. They are what they call luminaries in the metaphysical world. But Dr. Kinley, being a Black man, saying that I also had this experience where he was made to understand what the meaning of existence was and what the meaning of creation was. A Black man at that time in the 1930s did, they wouldn't pay him much attention now. Religion has always thought that if anybody was going to have the truth, they would be white and they would be male.
Okay. That's a very unique sort of a person to have. So do you feel like it was meant to be for y'all's paths to cross
Sure,
like that?
sure. Because Dr. Kinley started the school in Ohio. And then my immediate predecessor, his protege, was a man who went to school. And it's funny because I'll just call him Dr. H. Dr. H, he was going to medical school in the 1940s. He knew Dr. Kinley as a child, and Dr. Kinley was his insurance man. And one day, Dr. H mother, Dr. Kinley was collecting his premiums from his mother. And she asked Dr. Kinley, did he know anything about the Bible? Dr. Kinley kind of sarcastically said, sure, I know a little bit about it. And so Dr. Harris, he kind of grew up, that's Dr. H, I guess you could say. And he left and went to medical school. He wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to help people at a time when there weren't a lot of Black doctors. He graduated from Meharry Medical in the 1940s, top of his class. He used to jokingly tell us how there was only two people ahead of him. And that was two twin brothers called the Buford brothers. And so he said that when Dr. Kinley asked a lot of them to come on out to California because he wanted to continue to promote this knowledge, and maybe even get it in film if he could, because at that time they were making the 10 Commandments. And so Dr. Harris said it's just odd that there were people in the school that had been there longer than me. Here I have a full-blown medical practice. I'm a Black doctor. He said I kept money in my pockets because a house visit only cost $5 at that time, which was kind of, a bit to them, but that's nothing to us. But he said for all the people to come out there, it was odd that I would come. But he ended up becoming the head of the school when Dr. Kinley transitioned out of the flesh. And he was my immediate predecessor and mentor. And yes, to answer your question, I absolutely do feel like our path were meant to cross. He was more of a father figure to me than my father and my stepfather. If there was any man in my life that I wanted to model myself after, it would have been him.
Well, I'm glad that you had that happen. That's what I call being in the right place at the right time. That's
Sure.
the sort of stuff that really redirects the trajectory that your life is on. People, especially like in churches and stuff, say, something's life changing, far too much. It becomes cliche. But in this particular instance, having somebody in your life like this is something that, had they not been there, then you probably wouldn't be who you are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Devin. Because the way my family came into the school is that my grandmother was best friends with a woman living in the projects, and her husband were attending the school. Now, my family was like just regular Sunday go lean Baptist people, my grandmother and my step grandfather. And they meet this couple living in the projects in Los Angeles in the 1960s, just like them. And they say, hey, we're going to this school, and this man, Kenley, he's talking about the Bible in a way that we've never heard it before. Sounds kind of interesting. And he's explaining things that no other pastor has been able to explain to us, and no other minister has been able to explain. So my grandmother, out of friendship with her friend, out of friendship with Miss Bay, she said, sure, we'll come. And the rest, as they say, is history. And from then, my parents went on to raise me in it. So yes, I think that was divine mapping out in my life.
Okay, so you mentioned like the Bible and metaphysics, and you give me an example of something that these people, or something that, might be a common conundrum that people might be stuck on in the Bible, but you feel like metaphysics can explain better.
Sure. So, I mean, and let me say this, and that's the reason why I didn't this. I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to be vague by not mentioning the name of the school. I just don't speak for the school anymore. They have officials that speak on their behalf, branched out to do my own podcast and everything like that. So I don't want anybody to think I'm speaking on behalf of them. But if they wanted to know the name of the school, that would be fine or anything. But an example of something like, I had an episode called Is the Bible True?
Hmm.
And one of the things I go into, Devan, is this whole business and this has caused so much. This little parable over in Genesis about a man named Adam and a woman named Eve has caused so much confusion in the earth plane. It is almost ridiculous. Because first of all, people think that it's a literal man named Adam and it's a literal woman named Eve, failing to realize that this is a parable. And a parable is a story that has hidden meaning in it. It's not about necessarily the story itself. It's about the meaning that you extract from the story. So when we're talking about Adam and Eve, there are many things that it signifies. In metaphysics, you will find, just like perhaps in comedic knowledge, you will find that one thing may mean many things. But with Adam and Eve, you can see how that in many ways, like for instance, the man Adam represents the physical body. The woman Eve represents the mind of man. So this is why she is often blamed for the fall of the human race, because the body can't do anything save what the mind tells it to do. But it doesn't have anything to do with a female or somebody that has an XX chromosome. The woman is really representing the soul. In the Bible, you will find that when the soul is spoken of, especially in Proverbs and in Psalms, it is often referred to in the feminine sense. So when we're talking about Adam and Eve, people erroneously think, well, it says in the Bible, let the woman be subject to the man. It says the woman, not the female. You see, what these are energies and these are types and shadows. The Apostle Paul spoke over in Romans, the first chapter, and he said, you take natural things or visible things, being creatures of a lower level, to understand the invisible things. So when we're looking at man and woman, you see, we're looking at shadows of heavenly things. You see, the reality. See, for instance, with the Catholic Church, I was thinking about this morning. You see, the Pope is called the Holy Father. Now, although in the Bible, over in Matthew, it says, call no man upon the earth your father. But you see, now he would be the husbandman of the Catholic Church. The cardinals and the rest of the princes of the church, along with the parishioners, they would be his bride. Now, they're not literally his bride, and he's not literally their husband, but in principle, he is their husband. That is why he's called Holy Father. When you can't have a father without some children, and you can't have a children without the bride or the woman. So people have erroneously taken this to mean, when Paul is speaking in a lot of his writings, that he's speaking of male and female. No, he is not. He is speaking of man and woman. And there is a difference between a man and a male. A male has an XY chromosome. A man is both male and female.
Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of different ways to look at things. And that's why I love the diversity of both my podcast and yours, the Zephyr Podcast, because, nobody really gets to say that their way of looking at something is right or wrong, or, it's all different. It's about what works for you.
Right.
So I wanted to, in terms of like creation and stuff like that, it is always a curious thing. I've never heard anybody talk about man and woman the way that you do, or refer to Eve, or refer to the whole creation story as more of a parable when it comes to man and woman. I've always wondered, and I've heard it questioned before, like, how can the earth have come from just two people? So if you have, physically Adam and Eve, and they had two sons, who in the hell did Cain go and fuck to have other children?
Right. That might be your first case of homosexuality. And even then, where did the kids come from?
Right. So either God made another woman somewhere, or Adam and Eve had more children than he fucked his sister. And so if that's the case, then you really can't have a case against incest if the whole world came from incest. So you've got to leave people alone, let them fuck the shit out of their brothers and sisters if they want to.
Right.
And look, I saw the movie Cruel Intentions. Yeah.
Yes, I saw it too. I mean, she was now you have to be fair, she was his step sister. She wasn't actually his sister.
Well, it's all the thing after that.
I mean,
I'm just glad the Lord gives me a sibling that looks like Ryan Felipe. Otherwise, the incest straight too. I would not have cared.
She cannot be held liable for her actions.
And then now let's talk about the Catholic Church. I was thinking about the poop, as I call him.
You call him the what?
The poop.
The poop. Oh no.
The poop, as I call him. That fool. All right, and the fools that follow them. I can say that because I was once a fool, blindly following preachers and stuff like that too. But
Louisiana, right?
I'm from Louisiana, Pentecostal, all of that foolishness.
Yeah, there's a strong Catholic stronghold down there.
And so, but the poop didn't have any more power than what people give him. And the same thing with any of us, any kind of leader or anything like that. If your people decide to pull a coup and overthrow you, there's really nothing you can do because there's more of them than you. But, and then you were talking about, Catholic customs, like they call them father, and the Bible does say not to call any man on earth father. They pray to like dead people, saints as they call them, and angels and stuff like that. And I could have sworn that the angel said not to pray to them, in the right of the Lord.
That's what they call, my teacher used to call it angelology. When you worship, it's the worshiping of angels. And he said you're really an angel. An angel is just a being that does not have flesh and blood, is no longer bound to the shackles of the flesh. He said, so you might as well worship you if you're going to worship Michael or Gabriel or Raphael. So that are just beings, and goes back to what I was sharing with somebody the other day, about the same thing, about this business of man versus male or woman versus female. You read about entities like Michael and Gabriel in the Bible, and you say, well, isn't he a male? No. Those are just names assigned to those energies or beings. Really, to be a Michael means to be a warrior. To be a Gabriel means to be a messenger. It really doesn't apply to even one entity. There is no entity that sits on the right hand of the deity named Michael. There is no one entity that sits to the left named Gabriel. You could be a Michael if you are a warrior for spiritual truth, if you are a defender of spiritual truth. You could be a Gabriel if you are a messenger of spiritual truth, you see. But people have localized it and said, well, that, that Michael sits to the right. Don't see, that's all speaking. When you read over there Revelations, I was sharing this with somebody at the gym yesterday, and I don't go around just talking to people. This young man just came up to me and asked me, it was random. It was just really random. I'm like, what? He would like me? What I look like? But he was asking me about this, and I was just telling him how that, people have gotten this so backwards. And I told him my teacher used to say that people think that Revelations is the hardest book in the Bible. He said Revelations is really the easiest book because Revelations is just a repeat of Genesis. Everything, Genesis is the physical aspect of it, and Revelations is the spiritual aspect of it. But you have these corporations, like for instance, what I was going into in my last podcast, podcast before when I was answering questions, a young man wanted to know about going to church, and he felt condemned. He's in the military out there in Virginia, and he felt condemned because he couldn't make it to church. And I said to the young man, I said, it says in everybody's Bible that God is now over in Acts, the 17th chapter. See, Paul was over there, and he was on Mars Hill. And he said, I see that you guys are devoted to the worship of idols. Because as I was passing by, y'all fools are so devoted that you even had a temple to the unknown God. In other words, they were so afraid of missing a God that they built a temple and said, we will put this to the unknown God, whoever we might have missed. You see, and then he goes on to say that Yahweh, or the Lord who made the world, you see, seeing that he is ruler of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with man's hands. But you have billion-dollar institutions like, and religion is a big business. It is a big business. It is a huge business. The Pope, people think of the Sultan of Brunei or Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world. No, they are not. The Pope is the richest man in the world. And the Holy Seat is the richest country in the world, you see. The bank that you call Bank of America here in this country, you see, it used to be called the Bank of Italy, you see, owned and operated by the Catholic Church. You see, if you go back and do research on the bank, on what we call Bank of America, it used to be called the Bank of Italy. And it was because when people erroneously think that Black people, we're the only ones that have not been liked in this country. Well, Italians weren't liked when they first got here either, to the extent that they wouldn't even be allowed to have loans given to them. So the Bank of Italy was created for them in this country so that they could start to have the American dream, because the white folks in this country that came from England and Ireland and other places didn't want nothing to do with them. And so that's why that bank was created, you see. But again, they create these mega churches, these palatial palaces, you see, and people are so impressed with the pomp and circumstance and the pageantry of St. Peter's Cathedral, you see, and things like that. But yet it says in everybody's Bible that the Creator does not dwell in temples made with man's hands, but he does dwell in temples that are made by his hands, you see. Your body, you see, as Saul says over there in Corinthians, is the temple of the universal spirit, you see. You don't have to go to Reverend Blackbottle's church on the corner, you see, or to St. Peter's Basilica, or any of those things, you see. You can sit right in the shower, you see, right in your car, wherever you are, and worship the Creator. And because he said he seeketh such to worship him in spirit and in truth anyway.
Well, I just want to say, fuck you to Bank of America. I'm banned for life from Bank of America, because when I was homeless, a guy who I didn't know, I never met before, he had a check from some business in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I was in Houston, and so I was like, whatever. And so I went to the bank to try to cash it, and I got arrested. It's the things you do when you're homeless and you ain't got shit to do. And so that was a part of the whole deal in court. I got probation, but but I'm banned from all Bank of America properties and business and stuff for the rest of my life. So
fuck, that's not a punishment. That's a blessing.
Right. Fuck them for being all unforgiving and shit. And I don't know what the DA told them. So.
It doesn't matter. Does it really matter? I mean, to ban somebody for life from a bank. Seriously.
And
You will no longer be allowed to store your money. We will not hold your money and charge you anymore.
and so
That's your punishment.
and so oh, and so with the whole like not calling any other any other man father, I wanted to clarify that goes beyond like say like your dad or something like that. When people say father, talking about God, it's a more holistic and fulfilling way that you're referencing him, as being like your ultimate provider and everything like that. It goes further beyond than just, hey dad, what's up, pops? It's not like that. So if you call your physical dad father in like a passive way like that, and God is not mad at you, but what Elijah and I are talking about is the pedestal and how they put like the father in the Catholic Church, like equal to God. Like you can't even pray and ask forgiveness for yourself. You got to go and confess to a human, which is completely fucked up. It has absolutely nothing to do with the purpose of Jesus Christ. So like, what's the point of Jesus coming to stand in the place and be the last sacrifice? And he said, no man come to the Father, but by Jesus or
me, right? You out here in these metaphysical streets.
So what the fuck do you need the damn preacher for?
Well, the sad part about it is that they have called Peter the first pope. And the word, and Peter, first of all, if you go over there in Matthew, I get the exact scripture is not coming to me right now, but it's in the book of Matthew where it talks about Peter's mother-in-law. So the only way I know you can get a mother-in-law is if you got a wife. So if Peter is the first pope, and now, of course, if you know their history, popes used to get married. I mean, there used to be this series called The Borgias about Rodrigo Borgia and you talking about incest. That was an incestuous family, if you had ever seen one. Lucrezia Borgia and her brother Cesare, they used to get it on like it was just the thing to do. And Rodrigo Borgia, known as Pope Alexander VI, I mean, that's where the whole Godfather thing comes from. You see, that's where that whole idea of the God, it came from Rodrigo Borgia and his mob thuggish children. It would be like, I don't mean to get political, but it would be like Donald Trump and his kids today. Trump would be Rodrigo Borgia.
Ew.
Junior would be Cesare. The youngest one would be Juan. And Ivanka would be Lucrezia.
Skeletor.
Tiffany, she just don't even fit into the equation.
Ivanka would be Skeletor.
Oh. I'm not going to tell you what my mom calls her. I'm not going to tell you what my mom calls her.
I'm just skeleton twat or some shit.
No, my mom calls her gooseneck. That's so terrible.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with a little bit of shade. Just a little.
Hey, there you guys. Supporters out there. I don't know how many Trump supporters are listening to the band or my podcast. I try not to get too political. I try to, because of the type of podcasts I have. You have the liberty to do that, but I try not to circumscribe anybody or anything like that.
Oh, I want to get back on angels because angels are very, very special to me, and it's a very fine line that we tread in dealing with them because we're only supposed to pray to God in the name of Jesus, period. And from my reading of the scriptures, I only see two angel names given, which are Michael and Gabriel. And then there's other times in there where like people try to get names out of angels and they refuse to give them to them, probably because the person was turned around and tried to worship them. And many times the angels have to remind people, to worship God whenever they go to try to worship them like that. And I've had a few of them in times, they've appeared to me like in human form. And I think that happens with people more often. And the Bible does say that we have entertained angels at unawares. From the times that I remember, the first one that happened, me and my dad were like being just typical and last people in the grocery store back in, I think like the 80s or something like that. So we were the last car to leave, the workers in there probably cussing us out, like to get that fuck out so we can go home. And it was just me and him in the parking lot. Like, the parking lot was empty. And then we looked up and there's this man just suddenly standing in my dad's window. And I'll never forget the look in his eyes. He was dressed homeless, but his eyes had like an electricity and a life to it that does not bespeak homelessness. And I've been homeless before, and then you lose the light really, really out of your eyes and stuff like that. And there isn't much joy there. But he was talking to me, and he was asking me for exactly $1, and which is all I had in my wallet. And the Lord always knows exactly how much money you have. Um, and I was afraid to give it to him because back then I used to get my ass beat for like everything and nothing because I was raised in an abusive household. And so, but the Lord came to test my heart more than my physical action. So the Lord knew I would have because I'm not a tight or stingy person. I love giving. It's one of my greatest joys in life. And, we hesitated and we looked down, and to my surprise, my dad would have been okay with me giving him the $1. I was frozen in fear. It's like I wanted to, but I didn't want to get hit. And so, and then just that quick, we looked up and the man was gone. Now, if it was like a whole big parking lot, he could not have walked away in a split second that fast.
Sure.
And I've had other instances happen like that. And I like to be transparent about that so that people don't think that they're going crazy or second guess or question how God has come to personally deal with them. Sometimes we meet people who already know our names and we know damn well we ain't never met before, and stuff like that.
Well, angelic beings, first of all, the flesh, we call it the veil of the flesh. And my teacher used to say all the time, he say, now, if you would know this to that end because you're familiar with the scriptures, but he would talk about that tabernacle that the Israelites pitched out there in the wilderness of Sinai over there in the law,
Mm-hmm.
and how that tabernacle was like going to be the temple in which the creator, he said, I'll dwell among you because it's not time for me to dwell in you. He wasn't going to dwell in them until Pentecost. So he said, build me a tabernacle. That tabernacle went on to become Solomon's temple, the furniture inside of it. That shows how that we go from physical bodies to universal bodies when we transcend. See, because Solomon's temple will be more glorified version of the tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
But in that tabernacle, you would have the veils, and there were 3 veils. And my teacher used to say, pay attention to those veils, because you see, when you talk not just switch, but when we talk about Jacob's ladder, you see, and it had angels ascending and descending upon that ladder. That ladder really represents consciousness, and each rung represents a higher level of consciousness. That's why you have now in the Catholic Church, they call it the celestial hierarchy. My teacher said it's not a hierarchy, it's an order. And you have the 12 orders of universal beings, on up from angels all the way up to supernals. And each rung is a being or beings that experience the universe at a higher vibration or a higher level of consciousness. And that's what this school is that we are in. This is a kindergarten for angelic or universal or just entities. If the word angelic sounds too abstract for you or spirit sounds too abstract, just say entity, because of physical entities. You see, and a spirit being is just an entity that's not limited to flesh and blood. And they have the power to descend and ascend and make their presence known at will. That's one of the perks to having. See, when they would go to reach for the Messiah in the scriptures and he would just disappear, you see. See, the flesh is determined by consciousness, by vibrational consciousness. So if you're able to descend it in vibration and make your presence known, you can ascend in vibration and disappear or take away the appearance of the physical form. That's when you get into astral bodies and all of that, and people practicing. And my teacher, Dr. Kendall, would tell us, he said, now, because you have people, and they still do it now, practice astral projection. He said, now don't do that, because you might not know how to get back in the body. He said, I can do it because I know how to get back in the body. There would be people, he would go back home to Ohio to minister to the folks that didn't come out with the 70 souls that came out with him, and the school grew tremendously from then. But there were people who stayed in Ohio and then eventually went out to other places, all over the United States, Canada, the Caribbean, in all Germany and all other parts of the world. And that's the school today. But people would say that they seen Dr. Kendall ministering before them up in the congregation. And there would be people in California say, Dr. Kelly sitting right here at the table. He over at my house. We had the service today, this morning. Dr. Kelly sitting here having lunch with us. And there would be elders that witness to the fact, no, we saw him here today. And he would tell us, and then he would, and I used to wonder why he never taught us the law of attraction. And one of my friends who's an elder in the school, she said that her husband asked Dr. Kinley, why won't you teach us the laws of the universe and the laws that now they call in Hollywood a secret and all that? And he said that because if I taught it to you guys, you would destroy each other. So he would not teach us the law of manifestation. I only know about it now because of other metaphysical teachers. Dr. Harris would often kind of insinuate about it. He would often jokingly say, when you are awakened in consciousness, you have to be careful about what you think. But he would never go in and teach the people in the school the law of manifestation and the law of creation.
Right. I'm going to put it in the show notes, but I want you to just verbally tell everybody what your email address is, because I know that they're going to have questions for you.
If you have any questions or anything like that, or you just want to talk to me, my email address is Ware. That's Ware as in whiskey, WARE dot or period at Elijah. I'm sorry, WARE.Elijah at yahoo.com. So it's Ware dot Elijah at yahoo.com, and Ware is spelled WARE.
And Elijah is ELIJAH.
Yes.
Yeah, the astral projection is real. My mentor, Evangelist Nelson, who was a great clairvoyant woman, used to tell people that in church too, like, be careful where you send your soul out to, because you don't know if it's coming back. Now, I first started going onto the astral plane when I was like in middle school, but it's not like I went looking for it. But I'm a gifted dreamer. I've been dreaming since I was like 4 or 5, and my dreams come true, and I see things and receive guidance in them from God, or from people who have died and who are coming back to talk to me. So I dream a lot. Every time I nod off, I'll dream. And so,
wow. So you never not have dreams, because and I've had time where I'll go to sleep and I won't dream, but you always have dreams.
Yeah, like I'm a dreamer. That's one of my strongest gifts. And
so you probably have a strong imagination as well.
Yeah, it wasn't until I went to school for hypnotherapy and stuff too. And just in different classes I've been in, different experiences, I began to understand that not everybody has the capability to like close their eyes and visualize.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody. I didn't know that.
Right. Because it's just so easy for you to do it. We figure that we always figure, well, we could do something. Well, everybody can do it.
But things in the mind like that, like just because I can, I don't know, build a house or garden, I wouldn't expect everybody to do that. But to be able to visualize yourself doing something, I would not have thought something in the head like that would have been something that's without of reach easily on people. So that was an eye-opening experience.
I don't really go into astrology a lot. I'm familiar with it, but they say people that have more earth sign moons that are in the earth, it's harder for them to imagine, because they're so grounded. I guess it would be like a Capricorn moon or a Taurus moon. And it's not that I don't believe there's any truth in astrology. But what metaphysics teaches us is that when you are spiritually awakened, you are no longer bound to the planets. You are no longer, it talks about over there in Revelations that the woman was clothed in the sun with the moon under her feet. Now, again, the woman, it's not talking about, it didn't say the female. It said the woman. The woman is the soul. The soul has been clothed in the sun. Now, what does that mean? That means the soul has awakened back unto its universal identity, or its identity as a son of God. And when the moon is under his feet, the moon represents, that's why they call it the moon sign in astrology. You got a sun sign, which is 12 zodiacs, and then you got a moon sign, which is 12 zodiacs. The moon representing the emotions. So when when you're clothed in the sun, that means you receive that true identity. You no longer, we call you Divanin, and you don't mind us calling you that. But you recognize that Divanin was just a role you played, and that the moon under your feet is that now your emotions are governed by the soul. You are in control of your emotions. Your emotions don't control you. So when it comes to astrology, You see, yes, as long as you are identifying yourself as the person that was born from your father and your mother, and you think that's who you are, and this is my name, and this is what's on my birth certificate. Yes, I believe that you can be controlled by those great celestial bodies that we call the planets, you see. But when you have awakened back to your cosmic or universal identity, you see, the moon is now under your feet and you are now clothed in universal in sun, you see, or the soul.
Absolutely. The book of Revelation is probably my favorite. No, it's most certainly my favorite book of the Bible. That, and I love the book of Daniel too, because they kind of mirror each other. So on the astral projection, I just wanted to clarify
Sure.
that, because this is another thing, I don't want people to think that they're crazy or that they're alone, because it's not the sort of thing that people just talk about a lot of, which I wish there was more of. But so like if you're sleeping at night, because I did not go trying to intentionally get myself on the astral plane. I don't have to. It just came to me like that, and it just comes to me like that. So I just started sleeping, and I started becoming aware of the fact that I was dreaming in the middle of my dreams. I don't consider those astral dreams to be so prophetic. It's almost like I'm somewhere else. And so just a natural instincts, I begin to see, okay, let me see if I can manipulate the environment around me and control things and stuff like that. And that's kind of like the beginning of astral studies, astral projection and things like that. I've read where people try to go on there and maybe find other people and send healing energy and light to them and different things like that. And so if this happens to anybody who may be listening, just know that no, you're not crazy. There's a whole thing
No,
about
that. Oh, see, the sad part about it, the Devannon, is that we have been in these physical bodies for so long that we have begun to think that they are the reality of us, and that what is beyond the flesh is the shadow. We even think of it as shadow world. No, this is the shadow world. As a matter of fact, in Kemetic knowledge, when you're dealing with what they call the Egyptians, a lot of people thought that when they talked about the underworld, they were talking about the world you go to when you're no longer in a physical body. No, they saw this physical world as the underworld, because you had deity condescending into a lower state. So when you are talking about spiritual things, you see, now you may, in your current condition, you see, and when I say you, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about any listener, you may not be sensitive to those things, you see. But just like you're wise enough to know that the earth didn't start the day you were born and that it won't stop the day you die, you see, don't be silly enough to think that because you haven't experienced something, it could not be true. You see, and that's kind of thing that irritates me with somebody. Well. If I haven't experienced it, there's a lot of things you haven't experienced, and then we got multiverses. That's what eternal life is all about. Going on to experience yourself. You see, I think it was Hiram Butler, another metaphysical teacher, that said heaven is just an eternal revelation of the self. You see. So don't ever think that I haven't experienced it. There was a time when you hadn't experienced sex. Didn't mean nobody else knew what the emotion was like.
hmm and that's a damn good emotion, if I do say myself.
Now you gonna act right, Devan. You gonna act right.
Which means I'm gonna act out. You're talking about how short-sighted it is to think that, this physical form is like, our highest self, or like the end, and there's nothing but shadow beyond this. I think about that whenever I see like politicians or people who have physical power in this earth doing treacherous things and lying. Yes, I'm talking to
I feel like there'll never be any consequences for their behavior.
right. I'm talking to Republicans, evangelicals.
You go straighten up and fly right.
People wish to enforce their way upon other people. So people who are anti-abortion, anti-LGBTQ, IA plus, alphabet mafia. Yes, we're coming for you.
We own that whole alphabet.
I'm talking to you because when you die, then none of this authority on this earth matters. So the people that you had to step on to get there, throw out, lie and say January 6th wasn't an insurrection, try to justify Donald Trump, and with a straight face and think you gonna go stand before the Lord and get into heaven. Bitch, you foolish. And
I'm not messing with you.
and it's short-sighted because you have a soul to account for and spiritual currency you are not building up. That's why the Bible says hardly, scarcely will a rich man enter, because your priorities are askew. Angels and demons don't give a fuck about money because they understand what real power is, and they could give a damn less who has a seat of authority, because the ultimate decision of everything comes from the Lord, no matter how treacherous it might seem to us. And so you mentioned earlier, something about would a Republican be listening to this podcast only if they're going through
They have received salvation.
maybe you're gonna have to slap one of them motherfuckers upside the head pretty hard on a Sunday morning to get some sense in there. All the Urshers in the world and all the missionaries might be able to help one of them hard-headed motherfuckers. But
You know, my teacher used to say, he used to say, and this is really what prompted me to be honest about my sexuality. He used to say all the time, he said, now, if you know something, then you ought to know that Yahweh or God knows it even more so. And when you run around and you're just, to your point, putting on airs, trying to impress other shadows, you see, you are really telling the creator to his face, I don't really give a damn about what you think. I'm more concerned about what the people I can physically see, I physically interact with, and that I physically deal with on a daily basis are about. I'll deal with you when I deal with you. I'll deal with you when I see you. Failing to realize that he is their very self and he is your very awareness of being. You could fall down and hit your head, and they bring you into the emergency room and they say, Devanit. You say, I don't know no Devanit. You say, when they ask you, where are you from? I don't know. When were you born? I don't know. Are you married? I don't know. You got any children? I don't know. Are you conscious of being alive? Yes, I am. You see, you can forget everything, but you will not forget your I am or your awareness. And that is Yahweh or God. You see, and you cannot escape that. That's why he said, if you make your bed in hell, or if you make your bed in things that are low vibrational or negative, that's hell. He wasn't talking about a place under the earth. You see, that's another thing we misunderstand. And I was talking about this in my podcast the other day, this whole business of heaven and hell. You see, first of all, I don't have a heaven to put you in, the man, for the things you've done, or a hell to put you in for the things you've done. And you, neither you have one to put me in, you see, a heaven or a hell. But when we speak about heaven or hell, we have to understand that these are states of consciousness, you see. Just like the example I used the other day, you have what they call the ornithological kingdom, and that's the bird kingdom, you see. Now, out here in California, we have eagles and other different kinds of beautiful birds. And out there in New York, you have other birds and eagles and things of that nature, you see. But they all belong to the same kingdom. But the kingdom is not relegated to a physical place. It is a consciousness. And the reason they are all a part of the ontological kingdom is because they have a commonality in their nature and the way they are made up psychologically and physically speaking. They are a part of the kingdom of the birds or the ontological kingdom. When we speak of the kingdom of heaven, you see, now I'm not saying that there are, abodes or or planes where entities dwell and exist. But when we're talking about heaven, you see, those that are, you see, share the same nature, because the word name means nature. You were talking about the angels refusing to give their name. They refused to give their name, not because we couldn't pronounce it or that the actual spelling of the name or the word was sacred. If you ask me for my name, you're asking me for my nature, and I cannot give you that. You see, if you are a carnal minded man and all you dwell upon is earthly things, you can never know my name. My name is a mystery to you. You see, just like when we say there's power in the name of the Lord, you're saying there's power in the nature, you see, of the Lord, you see. So when we're talking about the kingdom of heaven, we're talking about all those who have the same name or the same nature. You see, there is a divine commonality between them. And that's what makes you a member of the kingdom. You see, you have the plant kingdom. See, you got plants out there in New York, and we got plants here in California, you see, but they are all members of the plant kingdom, you see. So when we're speaking about heaven, you see, you can be on this lower level, you see, or you can be a being that dwells in higher. See, those are the heavens, but that is not heaven, you see. Heaven is a state in which there is righteousness. Paul said over in Romans, the kingdom of heaven is not eating and drinking, but it is righteousness, peace, and joy. You see, when it speaks about different things over there in Revelations about gold and all, that is all symbolic. Gold represents the endurance and the power in the kingdom or in the nature of all those who are alike and have the same commonality. We are brothers. We are bounded no matter where we are. We are a part of the kingdom.
All I know is hell seems like, and that's thank you for offering an alternate way of looking at heaven. But all I know is that hell feels like it would be someplace where God is not. So whether it's flames there, or whether it's here, there, across the street, or across the galaxy, it seems like there ain't no Jesus there. And that's what would bother me about it the most.
Sure. Because just to go along with what you're saying, Paul said to you that are alienated in your minds. He didn't say to you that are alienated. See, the truth is, if the creator is omnipresent, there can't be any place where he is not, but there could be some place in you where he is not. You see what I'm saying? I'll give you a prime example. This just happened to me last night. I get home. I want to run to the store and get me something sweet because there's nothing in the house sweet to eat because I chose not to buy anything sweet because I said I'm going to eat. But I really had I have a tremendous sweet tooth. So I said, I'm going to go get me something sweet. And I start looking for my wallet and I can't find it. And I look on my dresser, I look in my bed, I look in my gym bag. I don't see it. I go to the car. It is not there. I'm looking under the seats and everything. So I said, I must have left it where I picked up dinner. I run, jump in the car, run back to the place where I picked up dinner. I asked them, did they find a wallet? The ladies tell me, no, nobody has turned in a wallet. I'm like, where could my wallet be? I look under the car again. I'm back home, look in the bedroom again. I don't see it. Look in other parts of the house where I think I might have put it. I go back to my gym bag and I said, well, excuse me, let me dump everything out. And when I dumped everything out, it was right there. Now I ask you the question, was my wallet lost? Or was it just lost to me? Was it lost in my mind? See, there was a space in my mind where the wallet was not anymore. I thought the wallet was lost. It was with me all the time. It was right here in my house. But in my consciousness, it could have just as easily been where I had picked up dinner. It could have fell out at the gym. It could have fell out at the grocery store. It could have fell out at the gas station. It wouldn't have made a difference because consciously it was lost to me, you see. So when we're talking about hell or the devil is really a state in which we think that we are separate from the creator. My wallet was with me the whole time. But in my mind and in my heart, it was lost, but not in reality. In other words, the relationship wasn't there. Normally, my relationship with my wallet is I know exactly where it is. But because I didn't know where it was, the relationship had been lost. So what has to be restored is not connection or any true sense of salvation. Salvation is really the wiping away of the idea of being lost or damned. And that's just another.
Yes, wallet once was lost, y'all, but now it's
And now it's found. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. So you mentioned your sexuality. How do you identify?
No, I hadn't really gone into it on my podcast. And it wasn't because I was embarrassed or anything like that. It's because I didn't want people to, if they're coming to Zephyr, I don't want them to think that is what the podcast is about. Because it's really not about me. It's about metaphysics. But
have you talked about your sexuality? Sorry to cut you off. Have you talked about your sexuality
on Zephyr?
On a public broadcast anywhere? Is this your first time publicly talking about it?
This would be the first time, but that doesn't bother me at all.
Okay. Well, come on with the exclusive then. Come on with the
Yeah, you got the
exclusive.
exclusive. And if it did, I would have asked you when we did the pre-interview, when you were kind enough to ask me, is there anything that you would rather I didn't talk about? You were nice enough to ask me that. And, as I told you, it's not a problem. I just didn't want people, if they're coming to Zephyr, I want them to understand what Zephyr is about. And it's about all of us. It's not me. Um, I hate to be vague and say, oh, I don't identify as this or I don't identify as that, because I realize we're living in a world where carnal-minded creatures have to label you as something. It just gives them acid indigestion if they cannot label you as Black, male, straight, gay, or bisexual or anything like that. I have been attracted to women and I have been attracted to men. And personally, I don't label myself any kind of way, but I recognize, being a minister, that that's going to be problematic for a lot of people, because there's going to be some people that say, dang, I was really enjoying you until, and I already know that. And being that metaphysics is a part of religion, and in the religious world, unless you are heterosexual, then no heaven for you. Then that's where I feel like it's important that I speak up and say something, because I would be a hypocrite knowing that I've been freed from thinking, you see, that there are angels in heaven who identify as heterosexual. And if I don't identify that way, then I'm going to be in big trouble. It goes right back to our conversation about maleness and femaleness. You see, first of all, we have to stop thinking that God is a big man in the sky, or a big male in the sky, excuse me. And of course he's white, because anything good and righteous is white. And we have a very cartoonish idea about what the creator is. We think he dwells in the outermost realms of the universe or at some other multiverse. And he sits up high and looks down low. And he's judging me based upon what I am, physically speaking. But if angels are neither male nor female, then, and this goes all the way back to us having to recognize that these roles that we are playing now, you're not going to be in heaven talking about, I was married for 40 years and we had 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls, and I had 6 grandchildren and all of that. It says that the former shall not be remembered and neither shall it come to mind. And this part of salvation, somebody was asking me about yesterday about the Buddhist religion, because I was talking about in Buddhism, they have nirvana. And really what nirvana is all about is letting go of the self. And they say when you let go of the self, that's when you attain unto heaven, because hell is really the self and heaven would be the letting go of the self in the Buddhist religion, you see. And the reason why so many people, especially young Black men, and I think it's problematic, because what these men do is they hide their sexuality, and then they go and get in these marriages. And the women can't figure out, why can't I reach him? What's his problem? Why is it that no matter what we do, it just, because we have such a toxic definition of masculinity, especially for young Black men, in society in general, but especially for young Black men,
Mm-hmm.
because we have mistaken how many women you screw, how many children you produce, whether your fathers to them or not. We think that that is being a man. Now, that may be being a male, but that's not being a man. We don't identify being a man as integrity, self-respect, dignity. Are you a person of your word? Can I rely on you? You see, are you a gentleman? You see, are you respectful? You see, are you on time? You see, or every time I go somewhere with you, you always talking about, child, I'm running late. That's not being a man or a woman. You see, that's being a male or a female. And again, I think so much of it, just like we have gotten so caught up and been baptized in white supremacy, we have been falsely baptized in maleness, you see. And again, I know many men right now, you see, that think they're deceiving people, but they're not deceiving themselves. But I always go back to that thing my mentor said. If you know, then you ought to know that the creator knows, you see. But they get in these, and it makes it worse, because that's why the marriages don't work out, because you have created, you see, what you think. And it always amazes me when I hear people say, well, I believe what the Bible says about homosexuality.
Mm.
You see, well, the Bible also speaks against miscegenation, race mixing, but you do that like it's going out of style with no problem. So if you were going to hold to what and it has scriptures in it, they say, I've never been to their website, but they say that the Ku Klux Klan got about 9 scriptures on their website speaking against miscegenation. You see, and in the Catholic Church, there used to be a doctrine of miscegenation. You see, but how many of these young black? I mean, it amazes me. They'll welcome Brother Kelvin, you see, and his Latina new wife back home from the military, and little Kelvin Jr. with no problem. You see, and that very Bible that they got sitting on their lap speaks against that, just like it speaks against homosexuality. But yet they don't view that in the same light. You see, and that goes back to, if you're gonna keep the law, keep the whole law. Don't just keep parts of the law that's convenient for you. I remember one time, I'll share this with you and then I'll be quiet. My mother had asked me to ride to her doctor's appointment with her. And I said, why do you want you to go with me? She said, no reason. I just want you to go. So we get there and they what they call triage her, take her temperature and all that good stuff. And it's this Caucasian or young white male, I'm saying young, in his early 40s, little skinny guy. You can tell he ran. Looked like he ran to work. He was so skinny. He said he loved to run. And we got to talking, and we're laughing and talking. And me and my mom are kind of talkative people. We'll go to the grocery store, things like that. And I don't know how we got on this, but he said to my mother and I, he said, you know what my brother always said? And we're like, we barely know you. So of course we don't know what your brother always says. He said, my brother always says, don't judge me because I don't sin the same way you do. And I said, you know what? That's quite accurate of your brother to say that, because there's so many things in this Bible that are spoken against if you interpret them physically. Women being preachers and teachers, but don't get up and can't sleep at 2:30 or 3 in the morning. You'll see Joyce Myers and so many other women talking about the Bible and up ministering before their congregation. But again, you believe what the Bible says about everything, you see, except for that. But when it comes to this whole business of homosexuality, see, first of all, you have to understand that Paul was speaking spiritually. You see, he was not speaking physically. Just like when he said, let the woman be quiet in the church, you see, or solid. He was not speaking about somebody with an XX chromosome. You see, he was speaking about the creator being the husbandman or the El Shaddai, the almighty provider, you see, of all that there is. And you and I, being a woman, we should be looking unto our husband for all our daily needs. Not a pope, not a minister, not a preacher, not your physical spouse or your physical parents or anything like that. You must look to your husband for all things, you see. Sorry, my talk going on too long.
There ain't nothing wrong with letting the Lord use you, because what you're doing is offering different perspectives. And one main goal of my podcast, of anything that I do, is to encourage people to look at things differently, to be willing to take a second look at things, and to not be conceited like people, who think that whatever it is that they think they know is the only way that it should be looked at. And like, if they were to reconsider it, then maybe they have compromised their belief. The thing is, you're realizing that you're a human and that you don't know everything. And so you take people like Joyce Meyer, Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, whoever it is that goes on TV and condemns homosexuality. And yeah, right. It's all good when people get divorced, for reasons other than infidelity. There's all kinds of stuff that, it's like the whole straight people in the church got together and said, all right, we're going to be okay with this, and this, even though the Bible says we shouldn't, but it's cool. And we're going to make a really big fucking deal out of the gay people. And that's fine. I can't fix stupid. I can't change them motherfuckers, but I can help people who are being influenced by them. And if you're going to be a hateful hoe and ride out with what they're saying and hate on people, well, then fuck you. But there's people out there who are miserable, killing themselves, hurting themselves over what televangelists are saying, or over what preachers are saying. And then sometimes preachers will say some bullshit like they don't preach a certain scripture, a certain topic the way they used to. What they're saying is they were wrong in their interpretation of it the first damn time. But what you're not going to hear them do is apologize for any damage that they may have caused, because preachers don't say they're sorry. Try to get one to apologize. They don't have the humility. Right. And so
I mean, there's so many things that, I mean, I was sharing with the person the other day. I said, the Bible, fertility is a big theme in the Bible, you see. But if a woman who is married, now, if marriage is all about procreation, if there's a woman in the congregation who cannot physically bring forth children, now there are some congregations that will put her out. But the average everyday congregation, those are more what people would look at as cults, physically speaking. But the average one-in-the-mill church would say, oh, Sister Johnson or Sister Smith, we're going to pray that the Lord provides you with blesses your womb. And we're going to pray that the seed of fertilization just arises in you and you will be the next Octomon, you see. And we just want to pray. Now, that never happens. Do you go to her husband, Keith, and say, Keith, this heifer she ain't gonna do it. You looking for Keith Gilliard, she just ain't gonna be the one. But fertility is a big theme in the Bible. That's what this whole thing is all about, spiritual children. You only got physical children because the Creator is witnessing to the fact that He's bringing forth a whole dynasty up in this universe, you see. But you don't tell a woman who's infertile, well, you're playing a very negative role and you're going to have to get out.
Well, the Lord has created the wicked for the day of destruction, and the hypocrites are in that same category. So there's going to be silliness like that in the world. And like Jesus said, at some point in the Bible, just let them alone. Mm-hmm. And so my encouragement to people is to get out from under the influence, of places like that. If you're LGBTQ or if you have any sort of alternative lifestyle, don't go and set up at a church where they don't like you, where they're talking about what you're doing is wrong, it's abusive to yourself. Get yourself out of there, find you a gay affirming church, attend somewhere over the internet if you can't find somewhere physically, or better yet, just go to God for yourself in your private time through the Bible, through different text readings, commentaries. There's all kinds of things you can look up on the internet now. Most places have the internet, and there's nothing more valuable than your private time with the Lord. Everything else is an accessory to that.
That's right.
That's all we have for the free version of the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast, my beautiful people. But hey, if you're vibing on what you're hearing and want to take it to that next level, then perhaps a subscription may be in order. Access to full-length episodes only costs $2.99 a month, or you can do $25 for a year. Or if you're down on your cash, you can literally donate any amount for 30 days of full access. All of this information can be found at sexdrugsandjesus.com, where you'll also find my blog and lots of resources as well. Your subscription strengthens our ability to reach the world and help hurting people. And by subscribing, you would become a part of that effort. Thank you so much for listening. And just remember that everything is going to be all right.